Hey guys, it's Mo from Mo in the Deep End, and it looks like the trial of Lucy Letby over in the UK may be facing some post-conviction issues. Looks like, there are a lot of people questioning this expert, doctor, and we might be getting, a retrial in this if, enough people have issues with the state's expert. Lucy Letby, medical expert. People are getting their facts wrong. Dr. Dewey Evans, whose findings helped convict the nurse of 7 child murders, has been forced to defend himself as a doctor as doctors question his evidence at the trial. The lead prosecution expert witness in the trial of Lucy Letby has said he is, quote, very concerned people are getting their facts wrong, end quote, as he prepares for fresh criticism of his findings. The opinion of Dr. Dewey Evans, a retired consultant pediatrician, on the cause of death or collapse in 17 babies proved crucial to securing Letby's conviction for murder and attempted murder. After his evidence came under renewed attack over the weekend, he stood by the findings, telling the Times, quote, we're clinicians, we're scientists, we stick to facts. On Tuesday, these explosive conclusions reached by a panel of 14 international experts will be released at a press conference in London. The intervention is led by Dr. Shu Li, a neonatologist whose 1989 research paper on air embolisms in babies was cited by the prosecution. It is understood that he will reveal that in most of the 17 cases, if not all, they have recorded a different cause of death or collapse from one given to the jury in Letby's trial. On Saturday, a report by the veteran investigative journalist David Rose claimed that a number of Evans' conclusions in the meeting with police officers were, quote, strikingly different than those presented in court, yet the jury was never told about them, end quote. This included Evans' initial analysis that Letby was not in the hospital when 10 of the 28 incidents described as suspicious took place. When the case came to trial, the jury was shown a chart of Letby's shift pattern, showing her on shift at the time of every incident that the prosecution was suspicious about. The report, published on Unheard News website, raised a series of other alleged potential discrepancies revealed in unpublished notes taken by police at the time. David Davis, the MP who has previously called for a retrial, said the report, quote, clearly exposes the inconsistent, unreliable, and conveniently variable opinions of the prosecution's lead expert at the time. He added that fresh evidence comes to light, as fresh evidence comes to light, the trial looks more and more like a serious miscarriage of justice. Now, on Sunday, Evans defended himself once more and stood by his findings. Quote, these statistical figures were not part of the prosecution at any time, he said. In the whole time I spent with the Cheshire Police, we didn't discuss statistics. We didn't consider straightforward statistics such as they are only usually 2 or 3 deaths per year normally. The first time I heard the disputed figures was from statisticians after reporting restrictions were lifted following the conviction at retrial. He continued, the Unheard article has loads of errors in it, factual errors, and shows the author's poor understanding of how clinicians, reach a diagnosis. He suggested that the notes with the police officers were merely reflections of his own thinking at the time and that the only conclusions that mattered were those contained in his final reports. His evidence to the court. Your evidence evolves as you get more and more information, he said. The Unheard article starts off with the fact that was wrong in relation to baby A, so I'm very concerned that people are getting their facts wrong. We're clinicians, we're scientists, we stick to facts. At court, the prosecution claimed that Letby injected air into the infant's veins to block their blood supply and cause a sudden collapse or death. Evans referenced Lee's 1989 academic paper on air embolism in the bloodstream of babies and said skin discoloration pointed to air embolism as a result of high-pressure ventilation. Now, Lee told the Sunday Times that having reviewed the court transcripts, he believed his work was misinterpreted. He told the Court of Appeal that none of the description of the skin discolorations in Letby's case matched those characterizing an air embolism. So the prosecution, or the Crown prosecution, had stated that there were these interesting patterns that would show up on these babies, a sort of lacy pattern on their skin, and that this was indicative of an air embolism that Lucy Letby had put into these babies, so a little air bubble to kind of stop blood flow through their circulatory system. Now it looks like the doctor who wrote the paper that they cited is saying that that's not how any of this works. Now, in response to his comments, Evans said on Sunday, his paper from 1989 got a lot of publicity but was not a major factor in the prosecution's case. Quote, what the prosecution stated was that some of these babies, as part of their collapse, had a skin discoloration, which has been described in Dr. Lee's paper in 1989, but, and it's important, but the presence of an embolism, or the presence or absence of skin discolorations, neither ruled out or confirmed an air embolism. It was not necessary. Quote, it was a useful paper, I don't want to down it, but comparing how babies responded to treatment in 1980s and due to how they respond to treatment in 2015 is different. Complications were far more common when I was looking after babies in the 70s and 80s. He also added of the impending press conference, if copies of the report are sent to me, I'll be very happy to look at them. Letby had an appeal against her first 14 convictions thrown out by the Court of Appeal, and a separate bid to challenge her 15th conviction following a retrial in October. Mark McDonald, Letby's new barrister, suggests that further challenge would be on the grounds that the medical expert evidence at her trial is not reliable. If the blue ribbon panel assembled by Shu is to have any impact, if the blue ribbon panel assembled by Shu is to have an impact, it is to strike at the fundamental basis on which the verdict was reached, McDonald told the Times. Now, Rose said, quote, I have spoke to Mr. Evans before preparing my article. With his agreement, submitted a long list of questions specifying all the detail which is set out in the piece. I invited him to make any comments he might wish, and of course would have reproduced them had he given me any response. The following day, he told me by email he did not want to comment. The detail in my article is drawn from the record of the shifts Lucy Letby worked during the period which seemed to have excessive deaths at the hospital's neonatal unit. An official office notes of the two-day meeting he held with senior officers from both the police and National Crime Agency. I made this clear to him when we spoke. And then there's another thing from the I paper. The 4 question from Lucy Letby's case as defense to unveil new evidence. Letby's legal team is expected to announce new medical evidence from a panel of international neonatal experts. Fresh doubts have been raised about the trial of convicted child serial killer Lucy Letby after claims that the jury was misled over key evidence. Letby's legal team is to announce this coming week that what it claims is new medical evidence from a panel of 14 international neonatal experts. The panel, chaired by Conservative MP Sir David Davis, will include retired neonatologist Dr. Shu Lee, who says his research and academic paper he co-authored more than 30 years earlier was misused to convict the nurse. Now, police notes uncovered by a news outlet Unheard also claim the jury was misled over key evidence that Letby was the common link between all suspicious incidents that happened at the Countess of Chester Hospital's neonatal unit between June 2015 and June 2016. Letby from Hereford is serving 15 whole life orders after being found guilty in the murder of 7 babies and the attempted murder of 7 others, with 2 attempts on 1 child. She is only the 4th woman in UK history to be told she will never be released from prison. So here are the questions. How was the evidence used, and what it was the jury told? A growing number of neonatal specialists have raised concerns over the evidence against Letby and how it was used during her trial. An appeal over Letby's conviction was rejected, despite backing from Davis, who believed he could clear the former nurse. Speaking in the Commons, Davis claimed to have key evidence helpful to Letby's case that was being withheld by the police and the Crown Prosecution Service. Previously undisclosed police notes uncovered by Unheard appear to show disparities between the analysis carried out by retired pediatrician and chief prosecution witness, Dr. Dewey Evans, and what was presented in court. Now, one discrepancy raised by the outlet involved Letby's trial being told by one of her colleagues that the health of baby K began to deteriorate after she had deliberately dislodged her breathing tube. Dr. Evans, meanwhile, told police in 2017 he believed that baby K had died from natural causes, about which he had no suspicions, as she had been born prematurely and deteriorated. He told the police in an email that the health of premature infants was often unstable. Letby was convicted of attempting to unalive baby K in the retrial. The first jury was unable to reach a verdict on that specific case. Another discrepancy involved baby B, who collapsed and almost died at 12:20 a.m. on June 10th, the trial was told, but when Letby was on shift. Dr. Evans, examining medical records, told the police in 2017 that baby B was subject to another attack at 10:50 p.m. on June 19th, the outlet reported, when Letby was not working. Letby was eventually convicted of the murder of baby B, but the second incident on June 19th was never raised at trial. The case looked at Unheard lists a series of other discrepancies between what was raised at the initial evidence and then what the jury was told. The case looked into 28 incidents. Letby was present for 10. Dr. Evans also drew up a chart appearing to demonstrate that Letby had been present whenever a baby died or collapsed in a suspicious circumstance on the neonatal unit, which was later used at the Manchester Crown Court trial. The papers, however, show that when the doctor originally looked at the 28 cases, Letby was not in the hospital when 10 of the 28 incidents he initially described as suspicious took place, more than a third. The jury was not told this information in court. They were instead told by prosecuting counsel Nick Johnson, KC, that Letby was the one common denominator in the unexplained deaths or incidents at Cheshire Hospital. Dr. Evans initially offered his services to the police in May 2017 to examine postmortem photos of a baby that had been bleeding over its liver. He had previously said he suspected foul play within 10 minutes of reading the medical records. Cheshire police then supplied him with medical records for more babies who had collapsed at Countess of Chester Hospital that they were investigating. Should the babies have been diagnosed with air embolism? Giving evidence at the trial, Dr. Evans referenced a 1989 academic paper by now retired Dr. Shu Lee, a former top pediatrician at Mount Sinai Hospital in Canada for more than a decade, and the founder of Canadian Neonatal Network, which includes 27 hospitals and 16 universities. The study was used to back the prosecution's case that Letby had killed the baby by injecting them with air, resulting in an air embolism. But after discovering his evidence was used in a trial unknown to him, Dr. Lee is now preparing to make a significant intervention, flying 4,000 miles to London to speak at a press conference on behalf of the Letby legal team. He told the Sunday Times, quote, "I don't usually do medical legal cases. I don't enjoy them, so I don't do them. But this one got me interested because they had used my paper. They asked me whether I would look at the evidence for them and wanted to know if the paper was correctly interpreted. After reviewing the court transcripts related to the paper he wrote, the doctor said I wasn't very happy because what they were interpreting it wasn't exactly what I had said. Dr. Lee is expected to outline the details of an independent review carried out by 14 medical experts into the death of the 17 babies that Letby is accused of harming. He is expected to argue that none of the babies should have been diagnosed with an air embolism, as none of the descriptions of the baby's skin discolorations given at the trial matched the kind seen with the very rare and very special sort of condition. This comes weeks after Letby's barrister, Mark McDonald, said that Dr. Evans had altered his views on how 3 of the infants had died in the neonatal unit. He said he was immediately seeking permission from the Court of Appeal to relook at her case on the grounds that Evans was not a reliable expert and the former nurse's convictions for murder and attempted murders were unsafe. Evans said in a response to the claim, quote, Mr. Mark McDonald's observations regarding my evidence is unsubstantiated, unfounded, and inaccurate. His method of presenting his information reflects a clear prejudice and bias, and I find his style most unedifying and unprofessional. It is highly disrespectful to the families of the babies murdered and harmed by Lucy Letby. Experts argue a different case for the death of some of the a different cause. It is understood that in a large number of cases, if not all, Lee and his fellow international medical experts, as part of the Independent Blue Ribbon Committee, have recorded different causes of death to the one used in Letby's trial and prosecution, the Sunday Times reported. Dr. Lee told the paper, this is not fair because the evidence was used to convict her, in my opinion, wasn't right. What I can say is that we looked at the cases in great detail and we came to some very specific conclusions about what happened in every case. He added that he was never called to dispute the prosecution's claim following Evans' evidence using the research paper. The Court of Appeals also refused to allow him to clarify how his evidence should have been interpreted. Evans has maintained that concerns over his evidence are unsubstantiated, unfounded, and inaccurate. He has repeatedly declined to speak out until the conclusion of Lady Justice Thirlwell's public inquiry into the events of Chester Hospital. Now, Cheshire Police told the Mail on Sunday that they declined to be involved in much of the ongoing commentary within the media. A spokesperson said, there is a significant public interest in these matters. However, every story that is published, statement made, or comment posted online that refers to specific details of a live investigation can impede the course of justice and cause further distress to the families concerned. It is these families and the ongoing investigations that remained our primary focus. A Crown Prosecution spokesperson said, 2 juries and 3 appellate court judges have reviewed a multitude of different strands of evidence against Lucy Letby. She's been convicted on 15 separate counts following 2 separate jury trials. In May, the Court of Appeals dismissed Letby's leave to appeal on all grounds, rejecting her argument that expert prosecution evidence was flawed. So I do want to see what this press conference will unearth tomorrow. But this is definitely an interesting sort of thing. Again, from what I was able to learn from the press, because they don't have live courts, is that Lucy was present at every single one of these collapses or deaths. So I do wonder if we are going to hear that we were maybe not told the whole thing, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth by the state. And if that is the case, if they interpreted this information wrongly, then is it in the best interest of justice to retry Lucy Letby? And as hard as it would be on the families, I think if the state did shenanigans, then we have to retry it. because obviously the state was willing to, play with the information. Now, if this turns out to be a big nothing burger tomorrow and, the state can explain things away, I am not sure. That's a whole lot of speculations about speculations that haven't even materialized yet. But I did want to give you guys, you know, this this could very well be a lead to a new trial if enough evidence comes out. So I did want to let you guys know about that, and I hope you appreciate the update. Please like and subscribe. Share this out with your friends. It really does help support this channel and me making this a fully profitable, job instead of a semi-profitable hobby, which is something I am working towards. So thank you so much. I hope you appreciate this story and my coverage of it. And I will see you guys in a little bit. Bye, you guys.